I want you to imagine something. Two people sitting in a room together talking about music. Two totally different mentalities, different style, different tastes. But those two people are also brothers. That's what I did in this episode of The Spirit of the Song. I sat down with my brother Aryeh Kunstler to discuss and have a conversation about Jewish music. Where it was, where it is, and where it's headed. Really hope you enjoy this very special and unique episode of The Spirit of the Song. Hi everybody, this is Dani Kunstler of The Spirit of the Song, and today we have for you a very, very special episode of The Spirit of the Song. I'm here with my brother Aryeh in New York.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Here for a couple of days, and I just really wanted to get the opportunity to sit down with my brother and talk about music, but not just stam music. The reason why I chose Aryeh, not just because he's my brother, is because Aryeh and I have very different styles, very different mindsets when it comes to music, and I thought for A, for myself, and B, for our listeners, to hear the differences between your mindset, my mindset, how you're able to blend, your styles of music with Jewish music together, which I've always found to be fascinating. And Aryeh is also my, producer in pretty much all areas of, of my music that I put out, which is always amazing because, again, between my style and your style, that you're able to sort of like put your style on the side and like focus on mine is not only appreciative, but it's I think it's a talent, which is what you are. I think my brother knows. I tell him all the time how talented he is, and it's really tremendous. But before anything, Aryeh, what I would love to do is very briefly, because we're going to talk about music. That's what this is about. This is not an interview. We're not, what's your favorite food or, or anything like that, but, or your favorite instrument, which we know is obviously the flute. But tell us a little bit about yourself, just in regards to your musical upbringing, your musical inspiration, just for the viewers who don't know the real you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is very cool, and welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. We grew up in a musical family. A lot of singing around the house. I'm the youngest by a distance, so I kind of grew up as an observer to the music in our family. Our father, Aryeh Kunstler, by the time I don't remember how old I was when he was doing his second album, but already he had one album, which you guys were on as little kids, and I had a little vocal spot on his second album. So needless to say, I grew up in a house of music. You were in Miami Boys Choir, so I grew up watching that. And I like to sing. I relate to music, but it never really crossed my mind as a kid that I wanted to, want to do anything in terms of music. I never really related to the choir thing when my mother, Mommy, asked me if I wanted to audition for the Miami Boys Choir. I said I'd rather play hockey on Sundays. And really until I think about 6th or 7th grade, I thought I was going to be a professional hockey player, although the extent of my playing was limited to the street outside our house. But hey, dreams. And I had started picking up guitar. I had little interest in my friend David, who got a drum set for his bar mitzvah, asked me, he's like, hey, do you remember how to play those 2 chords? I said, sure. He said, come over, let's jam. And we played those 2 chords over and over, probably in his living room for about 3 hours, and I was hooked in terms of playing music. In terms of musical influence, though, there was such a variety of range of music going on in our house because I grew up listening to my father's music, which was very folk rock, very folk Jewish music, which at the time when I was growing up, like Mendy Wald, Avram Fried, like all these things were the Jewish music that was becoming popular and I was listening to. But I had this very strong sense of folk music and guitar-based music. And there was at in Jewish music history, Diaspora Yeshiva Band was very guitar and rock and folk oriented, Moshe Yes. But I wasn't really exposed to that stuff as much. And I was exposed to Miami Boys Choir because you were in it and we used to listen to that stuff all the time. So that was my foundation. And then over time, as I played and I started listening to different artists, both secular and Jewish, I started creating this genre of music that I related to. And sometimes that was in mainstream music, Jewish music also. I remember when Mendy Walt's Chazak came out, I was like, oh, this is what I'm talking about, So already from a younger age, I was developing like an ear for myself of what I liked in music, and that didn't always match up with mainstream Jewish music. So, yeah,
gotcha. So as you got older and as you started learning how to play guitar, and the influence that you were getting from all the different styles of music that you were listening to, eventually you got into songwriting.
Yeah.
So take us there. Take us like where, the influence of the musical influence of what you were listening to and to what was going on, what was being played in the Jewish world.
By the time I got around to really being serious about music and taking guitar lessons, so you guys were out of the house, and so I grew up in Bell Harbor, so it's kind of, before I had a car, it was on the Motzei Shabbos, like there was no pizza stores, there was nothing to do. So I would jam with Abba. We would go up to the attic, me and my electric, and him and his acoustic, and he would play me different artists, both Jewish and secular, that blew my mind musically. And I found myself trying to start writing my own songs. And my early writing really had nothing to do with, Judaism or Jewish music. It was.
Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
I don't remember the first song. I think we may even have it recorded. The first song, like, I kind of wrote, and we laid it down on the 4-track tape machine in the attic. I have memories. I don't remember the songs themselves, but I wrote a song called Driving Down the Highway, go cliche. And then I wrote a song about 9/11, actually, because I was in high school when that happened. So I wrote a song about that. I don't think I really started writing Jewish music, almost until first year in Israel. Because as I went along in high school, it's like, well, I never really had heard so much of that blend of styles. And then I think maybe by the time I was in 11th grade, Blue Fringe, Moshav Band, Soul Farm, that world opened up to me. Diaspora, even old school, that world opened up to me, and my mind was completely blown. I remember when Blue Fringe's first album came out, I was like, this is everything I want to be. And I went, they were doing like a Judaica store tour. Like, on Hanukkah, they would go to different Judaica stores and play like these small sets. And I was like front row. Like, I needed to see these guys because I really felt they were doing something different. They were speaking a different language in the terms of Jewish music. And I think initially the response from the community was a little bit like, what is this? And Moshav and Soul Farm always had their own little thing because they came from Israel, and they were almost like borderline Jewish music, but not Jewish music. But like Blue Fringe, their first album was all Jewish music. And for me, that spoke volumes. And I said, you know what? Like, this is the type of music I want to write. Yeah. And I didn't really get into tapping into writing like that until after their second album came out, 70 Faces, which I think changed my life, honestly, as a musician, as a writer. It was high quality. It was real. I felt really real. It wasn't gimmicky. And I found that was the music that was speaking to me. I didn't find that mainstream Jewish music was speaking to me anymore. So
okay, so let's go there.
Okay,
let's go there. Music speaking to people. Okay, so I know the music that speaks to me. It's much more of a slow, emotional type of music. Obviously, with words that I understand, and even if it's words that I don't understand. I will try to make sure that I understand what these words mean, and I'll try to tap into it. But for you,
yeah, I I think in my early stages of writing and listening and trying to figure out what spoke to me, I think words from davening did speak to me. Like I wrote, my first two albums are full of songs with words that spoke to me at different periods of time. Im Eshkachech, B'Shem Hashem, like all those songs of Michamocha, Hashem Sefasai, which has English in it. But like I was able to tap into that, into the words of Tefillah and Tehillim and stuff like that they spoke to me, and I was able to put them to song. And I think at the time that music was coming out, when I was coming out with my first two albums, I think it still spoke to people a lot more than it does today. For me, over time and listening to secular artists as well, I found that in secular music there is a certain personal aspect that people can suddenly go, that relates to me.
Because it's all English words and it's
English words.
Feelings
it's about emotions. It's about real people things.
We're obviously talking about, the music in the non-Jewish world that like actually has meaning, and actually we're not talking about stuff that is just like thrown out there, but there are definitely songs that have feelings and emotions.
And powerful messages also. So to me, that stuff, first of all, musically, like that stuff was along the lines of what I enjoyed listening to musically. I was a guitar player. I was enjoying like the process of learning how to be a guitar player, and that's very present in secular music. But I also found that there was a very strong sense of personal stuff. Like I can listen to Lamancha over and over. It's one of the most powerful Jewish music songs that's ever been written, and at the same time, I have to be in a mindset of almost like Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and tap into to really internalize it. Like I have to work to internalize it. I understand why the entire world sings that song and people cry to it. It's extremely powerful song. For me, I found myself relating more to songs that were about things that I can relate to.
Without having to necessarily like tap in and be it in a moment or whatever it is.
I can listen to a song and go like, wow, like that. It's as if I wrote this. If I had to sit and write my feelings down right now about this subject or that subject, like that's what it would say. And it's real people things. It's not necessarily a Jewish thing. And it's always that subject of what's Jewish music, what's not Jewish music. It's for me, it's a little bit of a hard line, because you have Jewish artists that are writing about themselves and their own feelings. The music isn't about inappropriate things or secular things per se. They're about real people things. Right. And over time, I found myself really being able to like tap into that stuff, and I found myself slowly starting to write more in that style. And believe it or not, like being in Jewish music and in the wedding scene and listening to mainstream Jewish music for so long, it actually was a lot of work for me to say, hold on, I'm going to start writing about me. Like Up Like a Lion was like, that's one of my singles that I came out with, was like, I wrote a song that was a message to me. Yes, the concept of Isgaber Kari is like overlying there just because of the words, but if you really remove that concept from the song, it's not necessarily Jewish music per se.
So going there, when you have, there are a lot of songs nowadays that are coming out with people expressing their own struggles or their own, simchas or whatever it is, the highs and lows in life. And it's a frum singer singing the song about himself, about what he's going through, with, as you said, no specific religious, theme or whatever it is. Would that be considered a Jewish song? Like, in your opinion?
It's tough to say. Like I almost stopped trying to define what is Jewish music a little while ago, and the music I'm writing now more than ever is a little bit removed from that. I was breaking down the last couple of songs that I released, because you want to see, like, at the end of the day, it's also an analytics game. Music, what songs are hitting, what songs are not. Right. Kaylee, my song Kaylee, like when you just did it on Spirit of the Song, thank you. That song hit big, and I was like, why that song hit big? And then like a couple other songs I did, like, and then I came out with These Words, which I wrote coming home from shul after Rosh Hashanah, I was like, I really had a tough time tapping into davening this year. Usually even my own words, asking Hashem for what I need, or, and I've been through a lot the last couple of years. I have a lot to daven for. I have a family, I have children, I have a job, I have things that I need to ask to sustain, things that I need. I just felt myself like very disconnected, and I sat down and wrote that song and produced it, did a video, everything super fast. And that song hit big, and people are messaging me like, "Oh my gosh, that was how I feel every day in davening. That's how I felt when I put on film. That's how I felt in shul and Rosh Hashanah." And then I will come out with the next song, which is musically like this Within Your Walls is like one of the best songs I've ever put out, in my opinion. And it like people are like, "Oh, this is awesome," but it just like stopped. And I was like, "Why? Like why after that?" And then doing something like even bigger, why would? And I realized that. It's a nice song to listen to, but any listener listening to that's like, I don't see myself in that whatsoever. And I think with Kaylee, like, especially it came out, like I wrote it at the time, a lot of anti-Semitic attacks, and then COVID, it came out right before COVID. So there was a lot of, relatability to both the Hebrew part, to the English part, even to the words from Tehillim and the chorus, Kaylee, Kaylee Lama Zaftani.
If you never would have put in those words, let's put in that. If you wouldn't have put in those Hebrew words, Kaylee, Kaylee Lama Zaftani, do you think the song, meaning it would have been solely just like you? I feel alone in all this darkness, and, things are just, without Yosef Karduner doing his part, it would have been an English song just of what you were going through and what you were experiencing in the world. Do you think it would have gone as far as it did?
I think it reached a bigger audience because it had the Hebrew and it had the chorus of words that people recognized. But what I found from people is that, yes, the chorus happens to be, listen, there's also the hit factor of a song. Like if you write a good chorus and it's a good chorus, that's there. Part of it. It's like Tati My King. Like they played me that chorus, I knew that chorus.
Right. The reason why I'm asking is because it seems like when I look at a song like Kaylee, that's a beautiful blend of like what I consider like three different types. You have the Hebrew factor, the Ivrit factor, which nowadays is super popular. Then there's the English style, sort of like a rap, but it's like it has a certain like feel. Yeah. And then there's the chorus, biblical, Kaylee Lama Zaftani. So it's kind of like the ultimate blend. When we talk about the influence of non-Jewish music, Jewish music, and all these type of factors, I felt like it really had everything.
I think that song, I was really writing what I felt, and the words of Kaylee, like of the chorus, Kaylee Lama Zaftani, really spoke to me because it was right after all these anti-Semitic attacks, and there was a lot of things going on, and you're like, wait a minute, like, are we at that point now where Hashem has said, you guys are too far gone and I'm out, Obviously, that's not the case, but that's what it felt like. Right. And the words, I feel alone in all the darkness, trying to be a light in the world and cold and heartless, like, I'm just trying to be me, but like right now I feel really alone. Right. So there is a sense of that. Maybe it wouldn't have been as big, but take a song like These Words, which is all English, and in terms of analytical pace of streams, in the same amount of time that Kaylee came out, it'll probably exceed it in streams.
Right. But again, that's right. So I just want to take our listeners back for a second. I remember you put out that song, These Words. If you haven't heard the song, These Words, then you really should. Not because it's a great song, that too, but I think people will. I think it will resonate by a lot of people because so many of us struggle, in our davening, especially, and many of us struggle just in general in our avodas Hashem, and we're trying to find the right feelings. We're trying to find the right words. I remember right after I was here after Hanukkah. And there was the car accident with the girl who was Neftaris, and I remember all the the Jewish apps and websites. Everybody was doing stuff and talking about it and everything like that. And someone plugged in your song over there. Someone posted a link to your song and said, "This is how I feel," of not knowing how to feel. Right. And tons of people tapped into that. So. Just in general, it's a song again that talks about that song is another blend, another blend of spirituality, on just the idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm trying to talk to you,
And personal.
I
think this success, aside from the musical factor, like I said, the hit factor, and the fact that it's in this Ivrit, which is a very popular style, and it's also got like its own folk rock and ambient thing that people like really like listening to. That's why I really believe the success of Yishai Ribo is part of this. There are songs where his Adon Olam is, for the most part, words from davening. But then you have songs like Alev Sheli, and you have songs, Sibat HaSibot, and all these songs. Like, he is writing, and some of his earlier stuff is, I found, like, really personal. And he's similar to Kaylee. He's finding in ways to mix in phrases we know, but into very profound lyrics of a personal nature. That's what I found. That's what I tapped into when I started listening to him, before he was even, as giant as he is. And I think people relate to that. I mean, I find for myself mainstream Jewish music to be lacking in the personal factor. I do feel that we've expanded. Like, I'll give credit to like Baruch Levine and Benny Friedman, the song with Zakeni about Bonei Olam. It was amazing because people listen to that song, and that song hits people that are going through that. And when that came out, I was like, yes. They're hitting a subject that I think in Jewish society we try and be like, we try and hide the difficult things that people are going through. Nowadays it's a little bit more accepted. Unfortunately, there's a lot of tzaros in Klal Yisrael, sickness, infertility, divorce, all these things. They're real people things, and real people need real music that speaks to them. So people that are struggling with infertility coming out with a song, the Zakeni, like the Bonei Olam song, I thought that was amazing. It was something for someone to grab onto. It's hard if somebody who is going...
Which is what Tati My King also...
Correct, yeah.
That was like a real...
Yeah, I mean, those are at the time, high school kids who were having a real time identifying a relationship with God, and...
in general, Waterbury songs,
yes,
are really full of heart. Waterbury songs in general are very popular.
Yeah,
I think the popularity comes from this personal, the fact that you have these personal feelings in there. These people like really, I have had kids say, teenagers tell me that like, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel, and it's a Jewish song, and you have the Tati My King, or you have Father My, whatever. That's really the factor that is making people connect, especially the younger generation. I want to talk about like a specific story.
We'll go for
which
it.
I don't know if you remember this, but which we'll go into. Hopefully not too much of a touchy topic, but I remember after you put out your first album, it was in the summer after your third year in Israel, and. I was in America a few months later recruiting for my yeshiva, and you were in Shar Yashiv at the time, and you had writer's block.
Yeah.
You could not, for those who don't know, writer's block is what you just can't write. You just,
It's extremely frustrating. It's an extremely frustrating thing to do. Ironically, right now, my current state of me, I went through actually recently months of like really having a hard time of writing. Like These Words was probably like, until very recently, was like the last real song I wrote.
Right.
And very recently, like I kind of shifted my mentality towards writing, and right now I'm writing a song a day, which is the coolest thing in the world.
Right. So there are days, there are kufas. There are times where we're just writing, and there are times I have myself also where it just,
it doesn't go.
It just doesn't go, and you have feelings and you're trying to express them, and it's just not going. You called me up. I'll never forget this. You called me up, and you were literally like crying to me, like I can't write. I don't know what is going on with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I think we were supposed to meet for lunch that day. And I said, listen, I have a meeting right now. And you're like, yeah, I got to daven mincha. And I said, daven, so daven HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you called me up literally 20 minutes later, and you're like, I wrote a song. I'm like, whoa, hold on a second, wait. Slow down, And you said you started Shemona Esrei, and you got to the words Hashem Sefasai Tiftach, and you literally stayed on those words for like a while, and like right there, you wrote, I guess, the foundation for that song.
Yeah.
Now, I'll be honest with you, it's totally not my style song. It's not my style at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, sometimes when I every, let's say 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever months that I go back to listening to your old albums and my old albums, I sometimes even go to song 2. That's where I start the song. I'm totally not.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it's so
big guitars, and it's like a big.
Yeah, it's not my style.
Rock
It's
thing.
not my style, which
Yeah.
But I know where the song came from.
Yeah.
So the song will always have that song specifically, I'll always have something special in my mind of how you wrote that song. Now, I've had people come over to me when your second album came out with that as the opening song of the album, like what, like this is non-Jewish music. This is like, what's going on? This is totally not Jewish music, not Jewish. And I said, first of all, I know where the song came from. So it's a different style. And that is a song that has feelings. That also has a song that has, the words factor, that Hashem Sefasai Tiftach, and you have those words. Based on this idea and this story, what constitutes Jewish music nowadays? Like, what's, what would you consider Aryeh Kunstler? I'll probably have a different answer, although I feel like we should have the same answer. But what does Aryeh Kunstler feel constitutes Jewish music nowadays? Meaning, you have songs that don't sound Jewish necessarily. You have songs that don't have Jewish themes, as we discussed before. It's really more of a personal message that you're giving over, a feeling that you're giving over. With all that, taking all that into account, what constitutes Jewish music?
This is a very tough question. Actually, I started posting on Twitter a while back, and I brought up this topic about Jewish music and secular music, or what constitutes Jewish music. So what I think Jewish music is something that will inspire you to be a better person, therefore being a better Jew, or something that inspires you to be closer to Hashem. With that, a disclaimer. A Jewish person or Jewish people can listen to songs, or like I can relate to songs that aren't necessarily Jewish music. I know that is veering from the question a little bit, and this is, I guess, the first time I'm saying, like, I'm working on an album now that I thought was going to be a Jewish music album, and is very much turning into Aryeh Kunstler sharing himself with the world, writing very personal things about myself.
Right.
And that shift is interesting, because I'm going to have people who are fans of my Jewish music stuff, and they're going to be like, is that like Jewish music? And my answer right back will be, well, is Up Like a Lion Jewish? I have a song, Accept. Is Accept Jewish? Yeah, I mean, like, it's accepting about everything's for the best and Emunah, but it's like, I didn't write about Jewish music. Right. So what defines really Jewish music? Listen, at the end of the day, there's some Jewish music that's very popular that's like super pop and dance oriented, which for me, I love on a production level, and kids will watch it over and over and over and over and over on YouTube. It'll rack up millions of hits. And is it like coming from like a place that wants to inspire, or is it just because it's Jewish music and that's our niche market? I always say being an artist in Jewish music is the best thing and the worst thing, because you have a built-in, very specific targeted audience, so you can actually succeed in it, as opposed to the world, which is millions and millions of people. To break through that is impossible. At the same time, like, sometimes you want to be your own individual artist, and it's like, so what are you writing music for? Are you writing music for people to be inspired? Are you writing it for the hit factor? And it could be both. Like, I'm friends with a lot of the artists that are coming out with it, and some songs are strictly, this is a hit song, and we're going to put that on. Some songs are like, this is a real song that comes from a real place, and even though it may not seem like that. So Jewish music, it's such a gray area for me. It's a gray area for me of what actually defines Jewish music, because if someone will listen to a song of mine that I'll write about me struggling to identify with who I really am, and sometimes I want to go back and having the freedom to be the kid in me to come out and with before the world kind of, I just wrote a song like this. I want to go back to being the kid that I used to be before the world kind of brought me to my knees. Is that Jewish music? I'm not asking Hashem for help. I'm not digging in spiritually, but I'm speaking about a topic that I think a lot of people will relate to. So, I the truth is, I don't know.
Yeah. So that this is great because first of all, I agree with the very first thing that you had said, that in general, Jewish music is really it's not a one for all. I think everybody has to ask themselves that question.
Right.
Is this song that I'm listening to Jewish? And what does that mean? Does that mean, I think it means, again, like what you said, is it bringing me closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Now, I speak in yeshivas and seminaries about the topic of music, and I allow for questions at the end. And one of the most commonly asked questions that people ask me is, is this song, which totally sounds not Jewish, is this a Jewish songs? Now, we're obviously not to. I think there's the obviously Jewish songs, and then there's the obviously not Jewish songs, written by non-Jews or whatever it is. So that we separate that, and then there's that gray area in between, people talking about their own feelings. Usually, those songs are much slower, much more much more heartfelt, deep, really powerful, impactful. And then you have like these fast songs that are just, they don't necessarily sound Jewish, but they have the Jewish words. And, and this is what people are dancing to now, by the weddings, as, you're the wedding guy, that. So, in the last, within the last year, or two, songs came out. And I remember saying to myself, like, this is not Jewish. This is not Jewish. And, to her credit, she knows who she is, but like I was in my kitchen and someone played a song, and I had a seminary girl there, helping my wife cook on a Thursday night, chesed, and I was just like talking about like this is not Jewish, and she said, whoa, hold on 1 second, why do you feel this is not Jewish? And I said, this is totally not a Jewish sound, totally, and she was like, this is what we listen to, our generation. This is the Jewish music that we listen to. If we're not listening to this, then we're not listening to Jewish music at all. And it like struck me like, whoa, this is a new generation, and this is the music that they're listening to. It's a new sound, and Jewish music really speaks to different people, different ways.
1,000%.
And she's like, it may be a fast beat song, but like, when you're screaming certain words in the song while you're dancing, whatever it is, to us, this is how we connect.
You want to know something? It even goes a step further. Like, I've heard from people, like, in the same vein, right? A lot of artists are coming, music videos are super important now, and you come out with these very cute and tacky music videos, not tacky, like in a negative way, like gimmicky, or dancing, or animation, and you're like, how does that bring someone closer to Hashem? Like, that's not, Well, you want to know something? Part of it is, how do I draw a listener in? Sometimes, and a lot of times, especially nowadays, you need to draw them in visually, right? YouTube is a huge deal. Instagram is a huge deal. It's part of our society now. Like, there are people that are fortunate that they're not present on social media and the internet, and that's fine. A lot of us are. And it's very nice. You can come out with a great song. Sometimes we need to express, as Jewish music artists, a form of entertainment. We need to give people an outlet. We're not in the days now of where people are like, you'll be fine. You don't need this. You can just be a regular person and be close to Hashem and be a full-on from Jew and inspired and, without an outlet. You want to know something? Kids who sit and watch, if it's okay, I'm going to name it. People who sit and watch Mordechai Shapiro videos, like I remember when he came out with like Kol Mishemayim, I was like, yes. You want to know why? Because, it was like a cute video with a nice positive message, and there are dancers, and there are things, and da-da-da-da. You want to know something? First of all, it's an amazing song with an amazing message. Kids, both young and in high school, and and adults are all singing the song, and you know what brought them in? Okay, yes, there was a visual that maybe in a very frum sense is like, why do we need to have dancers? Right. Why do we need this entertainment?
Right, so for someone like me, the song was enough to tap into the message and the song.
People need
but for
more.
the younger generation, they needed that.
And the older generation. Listen, I know adults that are super into this stuff. I deal with adults booking weddings all the time that are speaking about different artists, that are singers that they want their wedding. I love that video. Man, I saw that video and I heard that song, and man, like, I never listened to Jewish music, but I bought that album and I love it. And you want to know something amazing? That is so cool. That means that a little bit, and some may say it's a bad thing, but we're starting to get a little bit more open-minded. And at the end of the day, if even songs like, let's say this album that I'm writing, if someone taps into a song of mine, it's not necessarily spiritual, or it's about, getting you closer to Hashem or anything, but it taps into and it does something to you as a person. It brings you closer. Like, you're listening to that over listening to other people. And at the end of the day, like, I come from a spiritual place, even though the song isn't. It's a tough push and pull.
There is this idea.
Yeah.
There is an idea that the neshama of a person goes into. That the word shir comes from the word shirayim. It's a spillover from the person's neshama into the songs that he writes. So even in this gray area of songs that are personal, not necessarily Jewish per se, but it's a from person who's putting his neshama, his feelings into a song. And if a person becomes a better person because of that, then yes, kol kavod, definitely, obviously better than listening to stuff that.
I do want to say, like, because we're very into the topic, and because there is no real answer to it, because there isn't. I was putting my son.
No general answer.
Yeah, there's no
specifics.
I was putting my 10-year-old son to bed, and we always like have a little talk, before he goes to bed. And he says, I want to say something. I feel something, but I'm not sure if I should say it. And I was like, okay, he's 10. He's a person now. He's not a little kid anymore. And I said to him, I was like, look, I'm not sure why you may not want to say what you want to say to me, but if you're scared it's going to hurt my feelings or whatever. I said, you're a person, you have feelings. You can feel what you feel what you feel, and it's okay. And he said it to me, and he was very justified in saying whatever it was. And the next day I sat down out of nowhere and I just wrote a whole song called "You Feel What You Feel." And it's going to go on my album. Now, it's literally about how you feel what you feel. It's not that big a deal. You want to cry, then cry. It's like, now, is that Jewish music? But it's people music. It's real things for real people. And I've found myself in recent years tapping into that stuff. I listen to certain artists. I don't relate to music that just, even secular music that, is talking about, topics that are foreign to me, or party culture or whatever it is that they sing about. I don't listen to that because it doesn't do anything to me. But there are artists that I listen to that talk about real people things that I relate to. That, like, when I was going through some things a few years ago, like, there were songs that, and there's a song, whatever, you don't have to even say that, John Mayer, okay? I'll say it. He has a song called Changing. It's about a person changing. And that you're never done changing. And that it's, to me, I was going through a lot of changes in my life. And I was like, wow, that's real people stuff. There was nothing inappropriate about it. There was nothing, it was just real people stuff. And for me, I can tap into Jewish music. Like, when I want to feel inspired and close, I'll put on some Ishay Ribo. I'll put on, there are other artists that I'll put on, if I want to
You could say, you listen to me.
Every once in a while. Listen, I put on, there are some songs from Simcha Leiner that I put on that, like, they're mainstream Jewish music that get me every time. Every time. Right. And then there are times that I need to be human.
Right.
And I think sometimes in our Jewish society, in our Jewish culture, like, we forget that we are human beings also. Yes, we are Jews. We are also human beings that have real people problems and real people things. And you know what? Listening to some mainstream Jewish music singer saying words from Tehillim or what, that doesn't do it.
Right.
And I think there's room for both.
Right. In a perfect world where we don't need or feel the need to express, things that we're going through. Just to, heading towards the end of this, but I think we've come out just to, even for our listeners to understand, and definitely educating ourselves in where Jewish music has gone, where music really has gone in the Jewish community. It's expanded so much, especially with the type of singers that are putting out stuff. And obviously there is so much for everybody. And some people just can't stand listening to Hebrew lyrics. They words something. I've had people, after talking in a seminary or yeshiva, and they'd be like, I can't. So I tell them, listen, if you're looking for English lyrics, there's the world famous Aryeh Kunstler. There's Journeys, there's Moshe Yes. If you want to go back even further, there's Destiny. There's all these type of things that maybe you could relate more to those type of things. And I'm just mentioning 5 or 6 names. There's tons and tons of singers now, because that's where Jewish music has gone. And people are, what is not Jewish to you may be Jewish to somebody else. It's like a terminology I use in my household. Don't yuck my yum. This is right. Don't rip a song and be like, this is disgusting. This is not Jewish. This is blah blah blah. And there are people out there that this is what connects them.
There are people that think Kaylee. I got a couple of messages on, people are keyboard warriors nowadays, and you have to have thick skin. And thank God I'm not big time, so I don't face all those people. But every once in a while, I'll get an email or a comment on YouTube or Instagram. And I had a couple of people say, like, "What is this? You're using Yosef Karduner?" Like, let's be honest. For me, definition of Jewish music, Yosef Karduner. It really is. Why? He's got a folky thing, but my gosh, no one is as real as him. And I wish I would have said this earlier in the podcast, in this podcast, because I've been playing with him for over 10 years, and every single time I play with him and I look over, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of this. This is not just music. Right. This is spirituality. But I had people reach out to me. They're like, you put Yosef Karduner on this song, and it's like, what is this? This isn't Jewish music. And I'm like, I don't know. I think the hundreds and hundreds of messages I got of oh my gosh, this song made me cry. This song helped me get through a dark time. I'm like, okay, for you, yeah. Listen, even for Yosef, he told me, he's like, he jumped on the song right away, which I was surprised about. But even for Yosef, he wasn't sure if this was his style, And in the end, he did it. And you know what? I've seen videos at concerts where he's playing it. He skips the English part, so he just sings the Hebrew part twice. But where he sings the English part, where he sings the Hebrew part, and it's become part of his repertoire. Mm. And it's, it's not for everyone. It's not, this thing is not for everyone. So you find, tapping into real music is mudgets? Sure. I'm going to relay over a story. I don't know if it's a public story, but very quickly, and I heard this last night from Avram Weisberger, who's been in the Jewish wedding business for years, and he gave Avram Fried a ride home from a show once, and what do you put on from Maryland? It was a long drive. He's like, what do you put on in the car with Avram Fried? Exactly. Podcast. What do you put on with Avram Fried in the car? Avram Fried is.
That's what I do when I'm in the car with somebody. I'm like, I hope you don't mind, but I listen to podcasts on my way home.
He's the GOAT of Jewish music. There is no one that is still kicking it the same way he was. And when I say kicking it, I don't mean an amazing performer and energy. Right. Putting out amazing music, hit after hit, but not just gimmicky hits, ABBA, really, wow. And this song he did with Thank You Hashem, the Mama Rachel song, unbelievable. Anyway, so he's so Avram is okay. So they're on the road, and he goes ahead and he puts on mudgets. And Avram Fried's Liza, he's this is real Jewish music. Wow. And you want to know something? It just goes to show that everyone's got their thing that does it for them. Right. And if you tap into something that's not borderline Jewish music, but it's real feelings, and that's what does it for you, great.
As long as you're honest with yourself.
As long as you're honest with, like, this is what does it for me.
Right.
And listen, there's a lot of mainstream. I play Jewish music every night at weddings. I play the latest and the greatest. Not every song does it for me. And then there are some songs where I put it on, I'm like, or we'll play it, we'll call it by dance, and I'm like, yeah, wow, like I'm playing this song, and this song is special.
Okay, so we discussed a lot over here.
Yeah.
A lot of good stories, a lot of just a lot going on. Really, that main idea that for people to ask themselves, is the music that you're listening to for you? This is not a general question. It's not a general question of is this Jewish music for you? Is this Jewish music for you? And you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to ask yourself that question. And if you feel that it's helping you grow, even on a personal level, where it's helping you emotionally, because if you're emotionally doing okay, then Be'ezer Hashem, that will help you grow spiritually. And obviously, if it's helping you grow more spiritually towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that for sure helps you. That definitely constitutes Jewish music, I think, according to everybody over here. But I think, like, people in general really should be open-minded to that concept of Don Yok the everybody has a different, connection, and everybody has a different thing. You have yours, and I have mine, and Baruch Hashem, like, over the years we've been able to blend that beautifully together, working on my albums.
I have you said in the very beginning of the podcast, like, I have the ability to set aside my own style for yours. Is A, it's the producer in me, but B, it's because I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate the angle that it's not my angle, it's not the type of music that I necessarily would put on the car and listen to, but I also understand for someone else, like, this is what does it for
him.
So right. There's room for that. I work on different people's albums all the time, different styles, different artists, different types of people, and you want something. The key is tapping into what does it for them. And I think everyone, in their musical preferences, they have the right and the space to do that. And whatever inspires you, or whatever makes you cry, then take that with you, because it's yours.
Couldn't have ended this, better myself. But thank you, Aryeh. Thanks for having us here, and to do this. And Be'ezer Hashem, this should help people, just have the more awareness in their Jewish music and music in general. And Be'ezer Hashem, we'll be singing the song of the Geula, B'mehera b'yameinu, Amen.
Amen.
Living L'chaim.